In the heart of a vast kingdom where the sun kissed the earth with golden warmth and the drums spoke louder than words, there lived a king feared by many and respected by all. His name was King Adetola, a ruler whose voice could silence a crowd and whose judgment could change the fate of a man in a heartbeat. But for all his power, there was only one thing in this world that softened his iron heart: his daughter, Princess Amina. Amina was not just beautiful. No, beauty alone could not describe her. Her presence was like the first rain after a long drought. Her laughter carried life. Her eyes held a quiet rebellion that many mistook for innocence. From the day she was born, King Adetola made a vow. His daughter would marry only a man of power, wealth, and honor, a man worthy of the throne she would one day help rule. And so, as Amina grew into a young woman, suitors came, princes from distant lands, warriors who had never known defeat, merchants whose wealth could buy entire villages. They came with gold, with jewels, with promises. But Amina rejected them all, one by one, calmly, without fear. The palace began to whisper, "Is the princess cursed? Does she think no man is worthy? Or is there someone else?" The king ignored the whispers. At first, until one evening, everything changed. It was during the festival of the new moon. The palace was alive with music, dancers, and flickering flames that painted shadows across the walls. Amina slipped away from the celebration, not to her chambers, but to the back of the palace, where servants lived. And there, beneath a dim lantern, stood a young man named Kofi. Kofi was a palace worker, a nobody in the eyes of the kingdom. He carried water, cleaned courtyards, and spoke only when spoken to. But there was something about him, something steady, something unbreakable. "Amina," he said softly, his voice trembling, not from fear, but from the weight of loving someone he could never have. "You should not be here." "And yet I am," she replied. They stood in silence, the world holding its breath between them. "I cannot pretend anymore," Amina said. "I will not marry any of those men." Kofi stepped back, shaking his head. "You must. Your father—" "My father does not own my heart. You are a princess, and you are the man I choose." The words fell like thunder. Kofi's chest tightened. "If the king finds out, he will kill me. Then we will not let him find out." But secrets, in a palace, never stay buried. 2 nights later, they were discovered, dragged before the king like criminals. The throne room was silent, heavy, suffocating. King Adetola stared at them both, first at his daughter, then at the man who dared to touch her world. "Is it true?" the king asked, his voice low and dangerous. Amina stepped forward. "Yes, father, I love him, and I will marry him." The court gasped. The king rose slowly. "You will marry a servant?" he asked, disbelief turning into rage. "I will marry a man who sees me as more than a crown." That was the moment something inside the king broke. "Guards," he said coldly, "take the boy." Amina screamed as they seized Kofi. "No, father, please!" "Silence!" the king thundered. "You will watch what happens to those who forget their place." And so began the torment. Kofi was thrown into the deepest dungeon beneath the palace, a place where light feared to enter. Days turned into nights, nights into endless suffering. He was starved, beaten, left in chains so heavy they tore into his skin. Each day the king visited, not to show mercy, but to break him. "You think love makes you strong?" the king would say. "Love is weakness." But Kofi never begged, never cursed, never denied Amina. "I would choose her again," he said, even when his voice was barely a whisper. Above ground, Amina fought her own battle. She refused to eat, refused to speak, refused to wear the jewels prepared for her arranged marriage to a neighboring prince. "You will forget him," the king told her. "I will die first," she replied. Days passed, then weeks. The kingdom began to feel it. The crops failed. The rivers grew restless. The elders whispered of imbalance. "Love has been wronged," they said, "and the land is crying." But King Adetola would not listen. Until the night the drums stopped. No wind, no sound, just silence. And then, a voice, not from a person, but from the very air itself. "A king who crushes truth will bury his own legacy." The king woke in terror. For the first time in years, he felt fear. The next morning he went to the dungeon. Kofi lay motionless, barely alive. The king stood over him, waiting, expecting, hoping the man would finally break. But Kofi opened his eyes and smiled. "You cannot kill what is already willing to suffer for love." The king's hand trembled. "Why?" he demanded. "Why endure this?" "Because she is worth it." Something shifted, not in the dungeon, but in the king. For the first time, he saw not a servant, but a man who had nothing, yet stood stronger than kings. The king turned away, but peace did not come. That night, he saw his ancestors in his dreams, men who had built the kingdom with wisdom, not pride. "You rule with fear," they told him, "but love builds what fear destroys." He woke before dawn, and this time, he did not hesitate. The dungeon doors opened, chains fell. Kofi was carried out, not as a prisoner, but as a man who had endured what few could survive. Amina ran to him, tears falling like rain. "You came back," she whispered. "I never left," he replied. The court gathered, the entire kingdom watching. King Adetola stepped forward. His voice was no longer thunder. It was something else, something human. "I was wrong." The words echoed louder than any war drum. "I believed power made a man worthy. I believed status defined love. But I have seen a strength that no throne can give." He turned to Kofi. "You have endured pain without hatred. You have loved without condition. You have shown me what it means to be truly noble." Then to Amina, "You chose not with your eyes, but with your heart." The king took a deep breath and did what no one expected. He knelt, not to them, but to the truth he had denied. "This marriage will happen." The kingdom erupted, not in shock, but in something deeper, relief. The wedding was unlike any other, not because of gold or decoration, but because of what it represented. A king who learned, a princess who stood firm, a man who refused to break, and a love that survived darkness. Years later, the story would be told by firelight, not as a tale of rebellion, but as a lesson that love is not measured by status, that strength is not proven by power, and that sometimes the greatest kings are those who learn when they are wrong, because in the end, a crown may rule a kingdom, but only love can rule the heart.